Many people believe that declining sexual performance, especially in men over the age of 40 or 50, is simply an unavoidable result of aging or lower hormone levels. This assumption is widespread and often repeated, but it may be incomplete. The article opens by introducing a different way to understand the issue. Rather than focusing primarily on age or hormones, it reframes the problem as one of circulation. In simple terms, performance depends heavily on how efficiently blood can move through the body and reach specific tissues at the right time. Blood flow plays a fundamental role in physical responsiveness. When circulation is strong, tissues receive oxygen and nutrients efficiently and can respond as expected. When circulation is reduced even slightly, the body may struggle to deliver adequate blood volume where it is needed. This can occur regardless of motivation, desire, or mental readiness. To make this idea easier to visualize, the article uses a familiar comparison. It describes blood vessels like a garden hose. When the hose is straight, water flows freely. When it is bent or partially blocked, flow is restricted even though the water source itself has not changed. In the same way, reduced circulation can limit physical response even when everything else appears normal. By shifting the focus away from age, the article removes a sense of inevitability that many people feel. Aging is often seen as something that cannot be changed, while circulation is presented as a functional system that can improve or decline depending on underlying conditions. This reframing lowers psychological resistance and opens the door to practical discussion. If the issue is mechanical rather than permanent, then it becomes something that can potentially be influenced through lifestyle awareness and daily habits, rather than something that must simply be accepted. Another important point introduced early is that circulation issues are not always obvious. A person may feel generally healthy, active, and energetic, yet still experience subtle changes in vascular function over time. These changes can occur quietly long before any serious health concerns are noticed. The article emphasizes that reduced blood flow does not require severe illness to be present. Small inefficiencies in how blood vessels respond can still have noticeable effects. This opening argument establishes the foundation for everything that follows. By positioning circulation as the central factor behind performance decline, the article prepares the viewer to understand why later sections focus on blood flow support, vascular health, and natural strategies aimed at improving circulation rather than promising instant cures or medical treatment. Once blood flow is established as the central factor, the article moves deeper to explain what actually controls circulation at a biological level. At the center of this process is a structure that most people have never heard of: the endothelium. The endothelium is a thin inner lining that sits inside every blood vessel in the body. Although it is only one cell thick, it plays a critical role in determining how well blood vessels function moment to moment. The article explains that healthy blood vessels are not rigid pipes. They are dynamic and responsive. They expand when the body needs more blood and gently contract when demand is lower. This constant adjustment is controlled largely by the endothelium. When the endothelium is functioning well, it releases chemical signals that tell the surrounding muscle in the vessel wall to relax. This allows the vessel to widen and increase blood flow naturally and efficiently. One of the most important signals produced by the endothelium is nitric oxide. Nitric oxide acts as a messenger that communicates directly with blood vessel walls. It does not force blood flow, but instead allows vessels to respond appropriately to the body's needs. When nitric oxide levels are sufficient, circulation tends to be smooth, flexible, and responsive. When nitric oxide production is reduced, vessels may become less adaptive and blood flow can be limited even if the heart is working normally. The article points out that endothelial function can gradually decline over time. Factors such as chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, limited physical activity, and long-term dietary patterns may all influence how well this lining performs. These changes often develop quietly. A person may feel healthy and active while subtle vascular inefficiencies are already forming beneath the surface. This is why the article describes endothelial dysfunction as a silent early-stage issue rather than an obvious condition. It often appears long before serious cardiovascular concerns and long before most people seek medical attention. By identifying the endothelium as the earliest point of breakdown, the article highlights a key opportunity. Supporting endothelial health may have wide-reaching effects because it sits at the control center of blood flow regulation. By focusing on this biological bottleneck, the article provides a logical foundation for later discussion. If the endothelium influences nitric oxide and nitric oxide influences circulation, then strategies aimed at supporting endothelial function can reasonably influence blood flow. This framing allows nutritional and lifestyle-focused approaches to be discussed as supportive tools rather than quick fixes or medical treatments. With the role of the endothelium clearly established, the article then narrows its focus to a single molecule that acts as the main driver of vascular response. This molecule is nitric oxide. Rather than presenting nitric oxide as an abstract chemical, the article explains it in functional terms that are easy to understand. Nitric oxide is described as a signaling messenger produced by the endothelium that communicates directly with the smooth muscle cells surrounding blood vessels. When nitric oxide is released, it signals these muscle cells to relax. As the muscles relax, the blood vessel widens and allows a greater volume of blood to pass through. This process happens naturally and continuously throughout the body in response to physical and metabolic demands. When the signal is strong, blood flow increases smoothly. When the signal is weak, vessels may remain partially constricted and circulation can become limited even when the body requires more blood delivery. The article emphasizes that this signaling process is highly sensitive. Small changes in nitric oxide availability can lead to noticeable differences in blood flow. This is why nitric oxide is framed as a central control point rather than just one factor among many. Without adequate nitric oxide, even structurally healthy blood vessels may fail to respond effectively. In this way, nitric oxide acts less like fuel and more like a switch that determines whether the system can respond at all. Over time, nitric oxide production may decline. The article explains that aging alone can reduce nitric oxide availability, but this decline is often accelerated by endothelial stress, inflammation, and reduced vascular responsiveness. As a result, circulation challenges may become more noticeable with age, not because the body suddenly stops working, but because this signaling system becomes less efficient. To keep the explanation accessible, the article simplifies the underlying biochemistry. Instead of exploring every pathway involved, it presents nitric oxide as an on and off mechanism for blood vessel flexibility. While this is a simplification, it serves a clear purpose. By focusing attention on nitric oxide, the article creates a clear and understandable target for discussion. If nitric oxide levels can be supported, then blood flow may become more responsive. This is why the article repeatedly returns to nitric oxide throughout the narrative. Every strategy introduced later connects back to this molecule in some way, either by supporting its production, preserving its activity, or improving the environment in which it functions. In this way, nitric oxide becomes the unifying thread that ties together circulation, endothelial health, and the practical strategies discussed in the remainder of the content. With nitric oxide established as the central signaling molecule, the article then explores how the body produces it and how this process can be supported through everyday nutrition. Rather than relying only on internal production pathways, the article introduces the concept of dietary nitrates. Dietary nitrates are naturally occurring compounds found in certain vegetables, and they play a supportive role in the body's nitric oxide cycle. The article explains that when nitrate-rich foods are consumed, nitrates enter the bloodstream and participate in a conversion process that eventually leads to nitric oxide formation. This pathway involves normal biological steps, including the action of oral bacteria and enzymatic reactions within the body. While the chemistry itself is complex, the article presents the process in a simplified and approachable way. The key idea is that this pathway allows nitric oxide availability to increase even when endothelial production is less efficient. Among nitrate-rich foods, beetroot is highlighted as the most concentrated and reliable source. The article focuses on beetroot juice because it delivers nitrates in a form that is easy to absorb and measure. According to the discussion, consuming beetroot juice may support nitric oxide availability within a relatively short time window. This timing is described in general terms, often around 45 to 60 minutes after consumption. The emphasis on timing is important because it introduces the idea that nutrition can influence circulation not only over weeks or months, but also in the short term. The article is careful to frame this effect as supportive rather than curative. It does not present dietary nitrates as a treatment for medical conditions, but as a way to work with the body's existing systems. By using food-based sources, the approach is described as natural and familiar rather than aggressive or pharmaceutical. This distinction reinforces the article's broader narrative that circulation is a functional system that can respond to inputs rather than a problem that requires immediate medical intervention. By highlighting speed, natural origin, and ease of use, the article positions nitrate-rich foods as practical tools that fit into daily life. This section strengthens the overall message that nutrition can influence blood flow dynamics in a measurable way. It also prepares the viewer for later sections where specific food-based strategies are combined and refined, while continuing to emphasize that these ideas are educational and supportive rather than prescriptive or medical in nature. After introducing dietary nitrates in general, the article then gives special attention to one specific source that stands out from the rest. Beetroot juice is presented as the most concentrated and consistently discussed option for supporting nitric oxide availability. The article explains that beetroot is naturally rich in inorganic nitrates, which the body can efficiently use within the nitric oxide pathway described earlier. What makes beetroot juice particularly notable in the article is how clearly it fits into the overall circulation narrative. because the nitrate content is relatively high, and predictable beetroot juice is described as a practical way to support nitric oxide signaling within a short period of time. The article emphasizes that this process works with the body rather than forcing a response. Once consumed, the nitrates follow normal biological steps that may lead to improved vessel relaxation and more responsive blood flow. The article references discussions from sports and exercise research to support this idea. Beetroot juice has been widely examined in performance contexts where efficient circulation is important for endurance and oxygen delivery. By pointing to this existing interest, the article borrows credibility from athletic performance research without positioning beetroot juice as a medical solution. This framing allows the discussion to remain educational while still grounded in real-world observation. To reinforce clarity, the article includes general intake ranges, such as consuming between 8 and 16 ounces. These ranges are presented not as prescriptions, but as examples used in discussions and studies. Including specific numbers gives the explanation a structured and technical feel, while still leaving room for individual differences. The article repeatedly avoids presenting these amounts as requirements or guarantees. Another reason beetroot juice is emphasized is its simplicity. It does not require complex preparation or long-term routines to be discussed in an educational context. This aligns with the article's broader theme that circulation is responsive and that noticeable changes in blood flow dynamics may occur relatively quickly under the right conditions. By highlighting beetroot juice as a focused example, the article transitions from general theory into practical illustration. It shows how one natural food-based input fits directly into the nitric oxide framework established earlier. This reinforces the idea that vascular responsiveness is not static, and that meaningful changes can occur without medication or invasive approaches. The section sets the stage for later discussions where beetroot juice becomes part of a broader strategy rather than a standalone solution. After focusing on beetroot juice as a way to support nitric oxide production, the article expands the discussion by introducing a second and equally important concept. Producing nitric oxide is only part of the process. Once nitric oxide is released, it must remain active long enough to support normal blood vessel function. This is where the article positions pomegranate juice as a complementary element in the overall circulation framework. Nitric oxide is described as a short-lived signaling molecule. It performs its function quickly, but it can also be broken down by oxidative stress in the bloodstream. Oxidative stress refers to an imbalance between reactive molecules and the body's ability to neutralize them. When this imbalance is present, nitric oxide may be degraded before it can fully support vessel relaxation. As a result, circulation may remain limited even if production pathways are functioning. The article explains that pomegranate juice contains naturally occurring polyphenols, which are widely studied for their antioxidant properties. Compounds such as punicolagens are highlighted for their ability to interact with reactive molecules in the bloodstream. By reducing oxidative activity, these compounds may help preserve nitric oxide signaling for a longer period of time. The article frames this effect as supportive rather than corrective and avoids suggesting that antioxidants directly increase nitric oxide levels. What makes this section important is the shift in perspective. Instead of focusing only on how to generate more nitric oxide, the article emphasizes the importance of maintaining its availability. This introduces the idea that vascular health depends on balance rather than intensity. Both production and preservation must work together for circulation to remain responsive. The article also suggests that pomegranate juice may influence baseline vascular function when used regularly as part of a broader dietary pattern. Rather than focusing solely on immediate effects, this section broadens the timeline and introduces the concept of long-term support. This reinforces the idea that circulation is shaped by consistent inputs over time rather than isolated actions. By adding this protective mechanism, the article deepens its biological narrative. It shows that nitric oxide function involves multiple steps and that addressing only one step may limit overall effectiveness. This approach justifies combining different food-based inputs that work through complementary pathways. In doing so, the article continues to frame nutritional strategies as supportive tools that align with the body's natural systems rather than as standalone solutions or medical interventions. With both nitric oxide production and protection addressed, the article then introduces a third supportive pathway that focuses on long-term availability rather than immediate response. This is where watermelon juice enters the discussion. Instead of providing nitrates directly, watermelon is presented as a natural source of citrulline, an amino acid involved in the body's internal nitric oxide production process. The article explains that citrulline follows a slower but more sustained route. Once consumed, citrulline is converted by the body into arginine, which can then be used to support nitric oxide synthesis. This process does not create an immediate surge, but instead contributes to a steady supply over time. By explaining this distinction, the article contrasts watermelon juice with beetroot juice to highlight two different timelines. Beetroot is associated with short-term responsiveness, while watermelon is associated with gradual foundational support. This comparison reinforces a key theme running throughout the content. Circulation is not controlled by a single input or moment. It is influenced by layered systems that respond at different speeds. Some strategies may support immediate signaling, while others help improve the underlying environment in which that signaling takes place. Watermelon juice is positioned firmly in the second category. The article suggests that consistent inclusion of watermelon in the diet may support endothelial function over time. Rather than focusing on a single occasion, the emphasis is placed on regular intake across days and weeks. This supports the broader narrative that vascular responsiveness can be influenced by cumulative habits rather than one-time actions. To maintain a practical and instructional tone, the article also includes simple preparation guidance. It notes that the lighter inner rind of the watermelon contains a higher concentration of citrulline and can be included when blending juice. This detail adds a sense of applied knowledge without making the process feel complex or technical. By introducing watermelon juice, the article completes a three-part framework. Nitrates support rapid nitric oxide availability. Antioxidants help preserve signaling, and amino acid precursors support longer-term production. This layered approach strengthens the claim that circulation can be influenced through consistent nutritional patterns. It also reinforces the idea that rebuilding vascular support systems is a gradual process that benefits from patience and repetition rather than isolated interventions or extreme measures. After outlining strategies that influence nitric oxide availability, both in the short term and over longer periods, the article expands its focus once again. This time, the attention shifts toward recovery and ongoing maintenance of vascular function. Rather than emphasizing immediate responsiveness, the article introduces tart cherry juice and green tea as supportive elements that may help create a more favorable internal environment over time. Tart cherry juice is discussed primarily in the context of recovery. The article explains that it contains naturally occurring compounds such as anthocyanins, which are commonly associated with anti-inflammatory activity. Inflammation is presented as one of the factors that can interfere with endothelial responsiveness and vascular flexibility. By supporting the body's normal recovery processes, tart cherry juice is framed as a way to help reduce stress on blood vessels rather than as a direct driver of nitric oxide production. The article also mentions melatonin in relation to tart cherry juice. Melatonin is associated with sleep and circadian rhythms, and the article connects this to the idea that many repair processes take place during rest. By supporting sleep quality, tart cherry juice is positioned as indirectly supporting endothelial maintenance during nighttime recovery. This framing keeps the discussion aligned with natural biological rhythms rather than acute stimulation. Green tea is introduced alongside tart cherry juice, but with a slightly different emphasis. The article highlights green tea for its EGCG content, which has been widely studied in relation to vascular signaling. EGCG is described as a compound that may support nitric oxide signaling pathways and help protect enzymes involved in endothelial function. Rather than increasing nitric oxide, directly green tea is framed as helping the system operate more smoothly and efficiently. Importantly, both tart cherry juice and green tea are positioned as lifestyle additions rather than performance tools. The article does not suggest specific timing for immediate effects. Instead, they are described as habits that fit into daily routines, such as evening recovery or daytime hydration. This reinforces the broader message that vascular health is shaped by repeated behaviors rather than single actions. By including these elements, the article broadens its narrative beyond quick response strategies. It emphasizes that long-term circulation support involves recovery balance and consistency. This section strengthens the idea that sustainable vascular health is built gradually through supportive choices that align with the body's natural repair and signaling processes rather than through short-term interventions alone. After exploring individual elements that support circulation through different mechanisms, the article brings these ideas together into a single integrated example. Rather than presenting isolated suggestions, it introduces a combined approach that reflects the layered biology discussed throughout the earlier sections. This is where the article outlines a specific mixture using beetroot juice, watermelon juice, and pomegranate juice. Each component in this combination is assigned a clear and distinct role. Beetroot juice is included as the primary source of dietary nitrates, which may support nitric oxide availability in the short term. Watermelon juice contributes citrulline, which supports longer-term nitric oxide production through internal pathways. Pomegranate juice is added for its polyphenol content, which may help preserve nitric oxide signaling by reducing oxidative stress. By assigning these roles, the article reinforces the idea that circulation depends on multiple interconnected steps rather than a single trigger. The article emphasizes that this combination is not random. It is presented as a way to address production support and preservation simultaneously. This concept of synergy is central to the narrative. Instead of relying on one mechanism, the mixture is described as supporting the entire nitric oxide cycle from input to signaling. This reinforces the technical tone of the article and helps the viewer understand why combining ingredients may be more effective than focusing on only one. To maintain clarity, the article includes general ratio examples and timing suggestions. These details are presented as illustrative rather than prescriptive. Including structure gives the mixture a protocol-like feel while still avoiding claims of guaranteed outcomes. The emphasis is on consistency and understanding rather than precision for its own sake. By framing the mixture as a structured routine, the article transitions from theory into application. It shows how the biological concepts introduced earlier can be translated into a practical format that fits within everyday habits. This approach also positions the author as guiding the viewer through a logical process rather than offering disconnected advice. Importantly, the article continues to frame this combination as supportive rather than medical. It avoids positioning the mixture as a treatment or replacement for professional care. Instead, it is described as an educational example of how nutrition can be aligned with natural physiological processes. This synthesis brings together the core message of the article. Circulation is influenced by multiple systems, and when those systems are supported together, the body may respond more efficiently over time. In its final movement, the discussion shifts from theory to execution, making it clear that effectiveness is not determined solely by what is consumed, but by how the entire process is approached. The article emphasizes hydration as a foundational element, not as a quick fix, but as a condition that allows the body to respond efficiently. Proper hydration supports circulation, balance, and overall physiological readiness, reinforcing the idea that preparation often matters more than the final step itself. Another key point highlighted is temperature. The article suggests that drinks consumed at room temperature allow the body to adapt more smoothly, avoiding sudden adjustments that may interfere with natural responsiveness. This is not framed as a strict rule, but as an example of how small, often overlooked details can influence results. The broader lesson is that consistency and awareness outperform shortcuts or extremes. Timing also receives strong emphasis. Rather than expecting immediate effects, the article proposes a window of 45 to 90 minutes, encouraging patience and intentional planning. This reinforces a recurring theme throughout the narrative. Meaningful outcomes rarely come from rushing. They emerge when actions are aligned with how the body and mind naturally operate. By respecting timing, the process becomes more predictable and repeatable, rather than random or disappointing. As the article concludes, it reframes the entire protocol not as a one-time experiment, but as a personal ritual. A ritual implies repetition, observation, and refinement. It invites individuals to pay attention to their own responses, make adjustments, and develop a system that fits their lifestyle. This approach removes pressure and replaces it with curiosity and responsibility. The final takeaway is simple but powerful. Small variables matter. Preparation matters. Awareness matters. Whether applied to this specific routine or to daily habits more broadly, the message remains the same. Sustainable results come from understanding patterns, not chasing promises. The article closes with an invitation rather than a guarantee. It encourages readers to test, observe, and learn, reminding them that no external method can replace self-awareness. The true value lies not in copying a protocol exactly, but in using it as a framework to build smarter habits. In that sense, the greatest lesson is not about the routine itself, but about approaching change with patience, discipline, and respect for the process.